Glenn, charming man. Snuck out from my modest little soiree, did you?
You don't know the meaning of the words modest or little, Owen.
And you love me for it. Pepper, darling, what are you having? Try the red. It's delicious. Just let yourself in. Be a sport and circulate the wine for me.
Let's dance.
The neighbor called about a noise complaint. I can barely hear anything.
I think this is more of a morals call. Possible acts of gross indecency.
We're after offenses against nature, are we?
You know, there are coppers who would enjoy taking some of these chaps down to the cells.
But you're more of a live and let live soul, aren't you, Constable?
I like to think so, but the law is clear.
What's the use of judging what happens in the privacy of a man's own home? We're not the morality department. Give me a proper crime.
Parker, I agree with you. I can't call this proper, but it's duty. Good evening, Toronto Prince.
I'll go around back.
Oi! Open up there! Proper enough for you? The victim is one Owen Paxton, also the owner of the home.
So this was the host of tonight's party?
It's still early. Where did all the guests go?
They all ran out the back when we got here. All men, sir.
I see.
It's good to have you back, Detective Watts. You enjoyed your travels?
Yes. Leaving the city behind for a time renews the spirit, Constable.
The wound on Mr. Paxton's head matches the base of this statue.
The time of death?
Crabtree and I arrived to break up the party at 9:40. His body was found soon after, alone.
The body is still warm. Avidity hasn't set in yet.
So he died less than 2 hours ago, between 8:40 and 9:40.
What's all this?
Mr. Paxton was a keen philatelist.
Is it philatelist or philatelist?
Stamp collector.
Oh, I know. When I was a boy, I was a bit of a fillet. From Bavaria, this one. In Australia here.
Perhaps Mr. Paxton was a member of the Toronto Philately Society.
Well, they have a club?
Do be sure to give me a report as soon as you have it, Miss Hart.
Certainly, as always.
It looks to me, Murdoch, like it's a bit of a bash and run job. Most likely one of the guests at the party.
Yes, unfortunately, it seems they all fled before George discovered there was a body.
You'd think one or two would have stuck around.
Presuming the party was downstairs, it's not clear the guests knew there had been a murder.
Someone who was here must know something.
We need to track all of them down.
Mr. Parker, please assist the constables downstairs in obtaining finger marks from all of the wine glasses.
We might be able to identify a party guest from this shoe, and this wine is somewhat rare. I'll find out who bought it.
You do that, Sherlock. But in the meantime, it might be a good idea to look at these photographs of Paxton and his chums. Oh, that's my butcher.
No. Hawaii.
Mr. Parker, you can eliminate all of these based on whorls. Did you not use finger marks in your work with the Pinkertons?
We had a girl for that.
You will find that it can be greatly advantageous to learn the finer points of identification. We have a new classification system based on whorl, loop, and arch, which can greatly improve our chances of finding a match. Our collection is growing each time we add a new finger mark to it.
So you want me to compare these marks on the glasses to all the known marks in Toronto?
Until you find a match. George can tell you it's not nearly as laborious as it may sound. Thanks to my system. George will help you.
Actually, sir, I was wondering if I should, I've discovered that Mr. Paxton was a member of the local Philately Society. I was wondering if I should attend one of their meetings, see if I could find out a bit more about our victim.
Of course.
George!
Inspector,
Jack,
here for the usual.
I'm here on business. This is you with your arm around a man named Owen Paxton.
What's this about?
He's been killed. I need to know what you know about it.
How did it happen?
I'm asking the questions. What was the nature of your relationship with Paxton?
We were old friends from school.
So you kept in touch?
What are you implying?
You knew about Paxton's tendencies,
Tendencies?
of the unnatural sort.
Considered it none of my business.
Were you at his party last night?
That kind of thing wasn't agreeable to me, Inspector. I didn't attend Owen's parties.
Not agreeable with you? You're in a picture with him and his friends.
I ran into them on the island. I was being polite, that's the truth of it. Honestly.
Very good. Well, that's settled then.
Where were you last night, Mr. Walker? Truthfully.
I was at home.
Constable Crabtree, what a delight.
Mr. Germain, are you a philatelist?
I have many interests, my boy, as you know. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Constable George Crabtree, one of the city's most amiable law enforcement officers. He must be here about poor dear Owen. Is that right, George?
I am.
We were all shocked and saddened to hear of Mr. Paxton's death, Constable.
This is Mr. Bedar, president of our little club.
On behalf of everyone here, I can assure you we are eager to be of any assistance we can.
Well, thank you. You all knew Mr. Paxton well then, did you?
Oh, we are a small but passionate assembly.
Were any of you at his party last night?
Not that passionate, Constable.
Look at all this. You know, I've often wondered how many stamps there are in the world.
I sense we have a budding stamp lover, friends. Let me show you my European collection, Constable. Well, that's England there.
It comes as no surprise to me he's dead. Offending God and the good people of our neighborhood as he did.
Mrs. Emery, you apparently telephoned the Toronto Constabulary several times to complain about Mr. Paxton.
Rather good it did. You do realize men of that strain are a threat to the morality of this city.
What exactly did you see last night that prompted you to call?
I didn't call last night, Detective. I certainly would have. But as it happens, I was out to Parkdale having dinner with my brother and his wife.
Mrs. Emery, did your neighbors share your desire to see Mr. Paxton move away?
Of course.
Did any of them argue with the victim, threaten violence?
It was Mr. Paxton who had the record with the police, young man. Are you aware of that?
Mr. Paxton was the victim of several attacks, as a matter of fact.
For obvious reasons. He took no pains to hide his perversion. None of my warnings seemed to deter him. He seemed to feel entirely free to parade it about with men coming and going out of his house at all hours.
Did you see anyone in particular coming and going recently?
Yes. In fact, I was able to get the young man's name.
I can't help you. I didn't know Mr. Paxton.
Mr. Seaburn, we have an eyewitness who saw you arriving at his home in the evenings and leaving in the mornings.
Your witness must be mistaken.
We aren't concerned with your personal life, Mr. Seaburn. We're investigating a murder.
Perhaps you boys don't exchange names. Is that it?
If I'm caught up in all this, I could lose my job.
We're merely trying to find out who may have killed him.
My company produces a catalog for his business. It was my job to show him the mock-ups, that's all.
You weren't at a party at his house last night?
No. I know nothing of his personal life. I'm sorry.
What did I tell you? The lots of them. All the same story.
Out of fear for their livelihood and reputations.
No need to baby them, Watts. This is the life they chose.
I'm going to see if the wine store operator can give us a description of the customer who bought that bottle.
Mr. Parker, I trust our classification system is making your job easier.
No matches yet. Detective, have you thought about canvassing known poof hangouts with the photos from Paxton's house?
I have constables doing just that.
Surely I can be of use in the field.
Stick with it. Detection is often a matter of tenacity, Mr. Parker.
It's just that I'm better at talking to people, and I fear I may go cross-eyed. Hotel bellboys are a good source for this sort of thing. Station House 4. Thank you. That was Mr. Paxton's neighbor. Someone has gone into his house.
Oh, all right.
You want to search the kitchen, Detective?
Yes, let's start there. Detective Scott.
A detective in the Toronto Constabulary? That's a party of left-footers.
I haven't said I was at a party, Inspector.
You match the description of the man who bought this bottle of wine.
To Owen, a man of far more courage than I, love from Glenn. You and the victim were close.
We were good friends, yes.
Give us the names of the rest of the guests that were there that night.
I can't say I recall names.
Detective Scott, is your loyalty to your friends or to the law?
If I knew who did this, I would tell you. I want justice for Owen just as much as you do, probably more. But I know what happens next.
Oh, yeah?
You're not going to throw them in jail? Harm their reputations, cost them their jobs?
We haven't threatened you with exposure, Detective Scott.
We will tread lightly with the others.
Are you going to let me go after this interview? I'm on a case, and if I don't go into my station house today, my inspector will ask why.
Tell us what we need to know.
Let me investigate myself. Some of the men who were there will talk to me.
You were caught breaking, entering, and stealing from a dead man's house. You haven't been cleared of suspicion in the murder. You're in no position to make deals, me old mucker.
You know I only went back to his house for the book.
We don't know anything. Give us names. Constable Dimmock. Take him to the cells, charge him with breaking and entering. That should loosen his tongue.
I don't believe that will work. If we charge him, it will amount to the loss of his reputation and job.
That homosexual is a blight on our entire department, Watts.
That may be, but with nothing left to save, he will have no reason to help us.
Too bad.
Detective Scott may be more forthcoming if I speak with him alone.
I agree.
Oh, sir. Good news.
What have you, George?
I found some of the stamps I kept as a boy. I wasn't sure if I even still had them. I found them in a box with some keepsakes and whatnot.
And what does this have to do with Mr. Paxton?
Well, sir, I did learn that a stamp can gain considerable value over time, based on various things, how rare they are today, what sort of condition they're in, whether there's any particularly interesting story as to their origin, and so on and so forth.
And Mr. Paxton had interesting stamps?
Without a doubt. In fact, sir, there's a member of the Flately Society, a Mrs. McDonald, who offers evaluation services. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll bring over my little collection, let her have a look, see what she says.
George, did you learn anything pertaining to our investigation?
Yes, of course, sir. I learned that our victim, Mr. Paxton, was well-liked by all of his stamping friends.
And were any of his stamping friends at the party last evening?
No, sir. They took pains to assure me that they were not that sort of friend.
Fine.
Right then, sir. I'll be sure to let you know as soon as I find out if this is worth anything.
William!
Julia, ready for lunch?
I stopped by to tell you I can't have lunch after all.
Oh, we haven't seen each other nearly enough since you got back.
I know, William, but there is a good reason.
Oh?
I've been assigned an important patient, the wife of an industrialist.
Oh, very good. Although you're not usually concerned with the class of your patients.
Not usually, no. But since Mr. Fitzgerald removed me from his surgery, I realize I may need to be more mindful of my reputation.
Of course, of course. And I'm certain you will do a terrific job at whatever it is Mrs. Wealthy Industrialist requires.
The repair of a hernia in her bowel.
Now, these ones are at least 30 years old.
They were preserved quite well. Good specimens.
But very common examples, I'm afraid.
So, not worth much?
Well, they could fetch a couple of dollars.
Now, this one from Nova Scotia is interesting.
Oh, yes. The 1861 cent.
Yes, I always like that one.
In this condition, worth $50 at least.
$50?
But unfortunately...
It is clearly forged.
You see, Constable, the dye, it has a perceptible green tint. It is essentially worthless.
Don't let these two spoil your fun, my dear boy. Their standards are exacting. But you obviously have a pure love for postage.
Indeed, to have carried these around for 30 years.
Well, I got them from love letters that my aunts received. I suppose that's when I first embarked down the path of philately.
Oh. He has the heart of a romantic. We philatelists all have a similar story.
What can you tell us about the investigation, Constable?
Just that it is ongoing. No real progress just yet.
We were wondering, what happens to Owen's collection? Will it go up for auction?
Vultures! The man's body's not even cold yet. Owen did have a few stamps I myself would be willing to pay top dollar for.
I'm sorry about my inspector.
It's my fault. It's foolish to go back to the house, but I knew you'd be looking for his friends.
We are. You know the other men who were there. Give me names. I don't have to reveal how I got them.
And you'll let me go?
Yes, we will drop the charges and make sure there's no record of your visit here. I don't understand. One of those men killed your friend.
Even if I believe that we're true, Detective, I don't know who it is.
You could take a guess.
So the men I named can be sitting where I am? I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
It's true that we can't guarantee complete discretion.
I admire his integrity on this point.
Whose integrity?
I had a word with Detective Scott.
Ah, thought he'd say more if I wasn't there, did you?
Yes.
And by integrity, you mean he's still protecting a murderer?
Leaving us at a loss.
There is one thing. Constable McNabb located the cobbler who made a replacement sole for the shoe Parker took off one of the fleeing men.
Good. Let's pay him a visit.
No, Μέρντοχ, you put your feet up. I'll go with Watts. Let's hope the cobbler's got nothing to hide.
I understand you're missing a shoe, Mr. Walker.
Close the shop, Jack. You're coming with us. You went to his house that night.
Would you believe I lent my shoes to a friend?
You lied about your relationship with Owen Paxton.
And when you said you were at home on the night of the murder.
I couldn't help you. I don't know who did it. It was easier to say I wasn't there.
Mr. Paxton's neighbor has identified you, Mr. Walker. She said that you were a frequent visitor, at times an overnight guest.
Should have known she'd be at her window at 5 a.m.
She also told me those visits ended abruptly, approximately 6 weeks ago.
Good old Mrs. Emery. She's right about that, too.
Did you and Mr. Paxton have a falling out?
Nothing lasts forever, Inspector.
What happened when you saw Mr. Paxton the night of the party?
I didn't talk to him.
You expect us to believe that you went to your former lover's party and it was all just jolly hockey sticks?
Perhaps you didn't intend to argue, but it happened anyway.
No, there was no argument.
You didn't go up to his study with him.
No.
Your finger marks, these, are on the murder weapon.
Caught in another lie.
We were close. The breakup was... I was not happy. That wasn't Owen's fault. He's a good man. But we were different. He didn't care about discretion. At times he even enjoyed poking at people like Mrs. Emery. But he had family money. I own my own business, and that's all I've got. My reputation is my bread and butter.
Why did you go over there that night?
I'd been drinking. Knew he was having a party. Felt sorry for myself all alone, I suppose.
Why did you go up to the study?
I wanted to settle things between us.
How?
Not by bashing him over the head.
We haven't yet said how Mr. Paxton was killed.
I know what happened because I found him. I saw blood on his head and on the statue.
You've been lying to us from the start and you're lying now.
No, listen. I went over to him to check his pulse. He wasn't breathing. He was already dead. I sat with him for a minute, then I heard someone yell, "Police!" and I ran.
You had a falling out with the victim. And you admit that you were in his house at the time he was killed.
So were a lot of other people. Owen's parties were popular. He made his home a safe place for men like us.
He doesn't want to give us any other suspects. Let him hang for it.
Sir, finger marks aren't enough to convict. He'd been to the house before. He could have touched it any time.
Nonsense. He has motive. Any jury will convict.
I don't believe he did it.
What?
His account was credible.
Evidence is evidence. Put him in the cells, Watts.
George, you've been investigating the victim's philatelist friends. What have you learned?
Detective, I get the impression they're not much interested in Paxton's personal life. They're more interested in who's going to inherit his stamp collection now that he's dead.
Is that so? Was his collection valuable?
Apparently he had some hotly coveted pieces. Some so rare as to be worth hundreds of dollars. For a stamp, can you imagine?
Let's follow the money, George.
I'm flattered you've asked for my assistance once again, Constable. Would you care to indulge me as to your theory of the crime?
Well, Mr. Paxton's stamp books were on his desk and shelf at the time of the murder.
It's possible someone tried to steal one of his more valuable stamps.
Oh.
And killed Mr. Paxton when he caught them in the act.
We were hoping you might notice if there's anything missing from his collection.
Owen was an industrious collector. I recently purchased a very beautiful Macon from him myself. One of the most discerning eyes in our little society. Don't tell Mrs. MacDonald I said so, though.
Your secret is safe with us.
He was the first in Toronto to procure a rare Greenwood Virginia, for example, on a trip to New York City some years back. That was a particular find. Oh, it should be in his Book of the Americas. He and Mr. Bedard enjoyed a spirited competition over their Hawaiian collections. All in fun. Here, I'll show you his uncancelled Brattleboro. Well, that is strange.
Is it missing?
Unless he moved it, but I don't see it. Odd. In his Canada collection, there ought to be a lovely set of British Columbia in perforate, but no, it's not here. These are all common specimens. These are all common specimens.
What do you know about Mr. Paxton's stamp collection?
That it was a substitute for the children he would never have?
Huh. It appears some of his rare stamps are missing. What if the killer was not one of the partygoers, but someone who wanted Mr. Paxton's stamps?
You don't think he sold them? He did like the thrill of the trade.
Well, we thought of that. It doesn't account for all of them.
I know where he might have kept them.
Where?
I have an errand to run, Detective. It needs to get done tonight.
I don't have the authority to release you.
I haven't heard a thing.
Take me to Owens. I'll show you where the stamps are if you give me an hour alone afterward to run an errand.
Let you out, you mean?
I'll come back. Promise.
Julia.
Dr. Dixon.
Pardon my intrusion.
What brings you?
You have a lovely home.
Thank you.
I wanted to discuss something with you, and I thought it best to do it away from the hospital.
Is that so?
Well, don't worry, I have no intention of repeating my previous bad behavior.
Of course not.
I brought you my notes on your new patient, Mrs. Acton.
Your notes?
Yes, you see, this is why I wanted to discuss it away from the hospital. I did the initial assessment, but I've convinced the Actons to pass the case along to you.
Why would you do that?
Well, I know you need the help, Julia.
I didn't ask for your help.
A surgeon as capable as you should not be limited by baseless prejudice.
Thank you.
Julia, I'm home.
In here, William.
What? Dr. Dixon.
Detective.
Dr. Dixon was kind enough to drop off a file that I left at the hospital.
And now my business is complete. I'll show myself out.
Owen had a collection of things that weren't appropriate for a display.
Doesn't seem like a very safe place to keep valuables.
That's what I told him, but no fires in the summertime.
Missing stamps. Have to get these to Constable Crabtree.
I've kept my part of the deal, Detective Watts.
What kind of errand is it you want to do?
If I don't visit my mother on Monday evening, she'll worry. I don't like to upset her.
If you don't come back, I will lose my job. You understand?
I understand.
Constable.
Have you found anything?
Mr. Walker knew where Mr. Paxton kept his valuables.
Are those the missing stamps?
Shall we have a look?
Do these account for Paxton's missing stamps, Mr. Germain?
Yes, but
Wait, isn't that...
the Macon. The one I purchased from Owen last month.
There's a Goliath you bought from him, Bertha.
But that's impossible. Mine was the only one on the market.
Could he have had another?
In this condition?
Is it possible these are fakes?
But why? Why would Owen keep fakes of his own stamps?
These are genuine.
So, may you have accidentally bought fakes? Impossible.
We would have spotted it in an instant. Owen knew as much. He would never.
Here is my Macon.
This is forgery.
Mr. Paxton sold you all fakes.
What does this mean?
It means that one of your new philatelist chums here might have murdered Mr. Paxton.
It's hard to tell, but this is the fake one.
Paxton sold forged stamps to his friends in the Philately Society.
Giving any one of them motive for murder.
They've been brought in to be questioned.
How did you find Mr. Paxton's secret collection?
Jack Walker knew where they were hidden.
And he told you?
No, he showed me.
He did what?
I released Walker for an hour in exchange for his cooperation locating the missing stamps.
He's been held on suspicion of murder. He could be on a train halfway across the country by now.
Could be, but in fact, he is in the cells. Seems you were wrong about this particular one.
That makes you lucky, not smart. You disobeyed my orders, Detective.
However he went about it, Detective Watts has found a promising avenue of investigation. The victim had been selling forgeries of very rare stamps.
Forgeries good enough to fool the city's leading experts. And the man who made them is sitting in our interview room. Mr. Seaburn, when we asked ourselves who may have forged these stamps, I remembered that you work for a print company. In fact, you're a skilled artist.
We found these print engravings in your office along with specially mixed ink colors that match the forgeries.
I illustrate catalogs. I made these engravings for my work.
We spoke with your employer. None of these engravings have ever been featured in any catalog.
Oh. Must have been for a bit of freelance work.
For Owen Paxton?
You recall, we know Mr. Paxton's neighbor saw you.
It was a professional relation.
Stop. No one believes you.
Fine. We were lovers. Put me in jail.
We aren't interested in indecency charges, Mr. Seaburn.
Well, you might not be, Watts.
Sir, please.
All right. But I'm listening to every bloody word.
You and Mr. Paxton devised a plan to defraud the stamp collectors of Toronto.
The forgeries were all Owen's idea. He knew my work and he thought I could do it.
Well, there's something about all this I don't understand. Mr. Paxton didn't need the money. Why risk his reputation as a stamp lover with his friends in the club?
He had a funny sense of humor, I suppose.
Write down all the stamps that you copied, please.
All this fuss over a few scraps of paper.
Well, we take our stamps very seriously, sir.
Oh, it's we now, is it, Crabtree?
The buyers would only have been angry with Mr. Paxton if they'd known what he'd done. You said the club members were surprised to discover that they'd bought fakes.
Seaburn's forgeries were good.
Mr. Germain had it fake for weeks and didn't notice.
Perhaps someone else did. Find out which of the club members recently purchased items from Mr. Paxton.
Good. In the meantime, we can let Detective Scott and Jack Walker out of the cells.
No.
Every hour they're in there, it is more likely they will be missed. People will ask questions.
Then take your hand out of your pocket and make an arrest, Detective Watts.
These are all the people you know of who purchased stamps from Owen in the past 2 months. There is one stamp on Mr. Seaburn's list of forgeries that doesn't appear on your list, Mr. Germain.
Oh?
The Moldavia.
I don't know of any trade with the Moldavia.
If it were offered for sale, who would have wanted to buy it?
Everyone. The Moldavia would be the crowning jewel in any collection.
I thought you said your European collection was unmatched.
It is. That is true.
Did you want that stamp, Mr. Germain?
Am I to understand that you suspect me? I didn't buy the Moldavia.
Well, Mr. Seaburn said it was made available for sale 3 weeks ago. Didn't you make an offer?
Don't make those eyes at me, George. I cannot bear your suspicion.
Why didn't you make an offer, Mr. Germain?
Well, you've caught me.
Oh, Mr. Germain.
So you did purchase the Moldavia, and when you realized your mistake, you confronted Mr. Paxton.
For heaven's sake, I am not a murderer, Detective.
Then I'm afraid I don't understand.
Days before Owen offered the Moldavia, I realized that my Macon was a fake. I pretended to be surprised with the others when you brought in the genuine stamps, but I'd known for some time.
Right, so you knew Paxton was selling fakes. That's why you didn't make an offer on the Moldavia.
Yes. George, can you ever forgive me?
Who did you tell?
No one. To buy a forgery? In our world, that is a humiliation beyond bearing.
Well, then who did buy it?
I swear to you, I don't know. But if I had to guess, I'd say it's Bertha MacDonald. She's been particularly smug with me these past weeks.
I did buy the Moldavia from Owen, yes. A beautiful specimen, but I don't believe it was forged.
We have the genuine stamp here. It was among Mr. Paxton's possessions.
So mine is a forgery?
I'm afraid so.
But why would he do this? Owen was a friend.
Are you certain you didn't discover the flaw yourself and then go to Mr. Paxton's house to confront him?
You are the Society's official authenticator. If it became known you bought a forgery, surely that would be your reputation ruined.
When did you realize your mistake?
Just now, I swear. Additionally, I was in Kingston the night that Owen was killed, if that helps you.
Right this way.
Mr. Seaburn, I need your assistance. Can you confirm that all of these are your work?
Yes. Except this one.
That's the genuine article?
Yes. See, that's the one I made.
The Hawaiian blue.
To my knowledge, Owen sold that.
Mr. Bedard brought that one in.
Detective, finger marks from one of the philatelists match the murder weapon.
Mr. Bedard, you were the only philatelist in Toronto in possession of an authentic stamp purchased from Mr. Paxton in the past 2 months.
I expect he knew he couldn't fool me.
Or you realized that you had been fooled. You had bought a fake, you confronted him, killed him, and exchanged the fake for the real stamp.
Of course not. This is outrageous.
Your finger marks are on the statue that killed Mr. Paxton. Can you explain that?
It must be a mistake.
He did sell you a forged Hawaiian blue, didn't he?
We have a witness that can confirm it.
When did you realize you had the wrong stamp?
When I was putting it into my book.
Same day you bought it?
Yes.
You realized what he had done to you? You went to his home? There was a party?
Yes. I confronted him, and he invited me up to his study.
Did he refuse to give you the real stamp?
He went to get it. But he was laughing at me, as if he had cooked up this entire scheme just to show me up in front of the others.
But he was giving you the genuine Hawaiian blue.
He was laughing at me.
You killed him.
I had the statue in my hand before I knew it.
You then replaced the forgery in Mr. Paxton's book and kept the real one.
No one saw you leave?
The way his friends were carrying on downstairs, no one heard a thing.
And you made the call to the constabulary about the party?
I figured that one of the guests would be blamed. But I was wrong about that much.
I understand you caught Owen's killer.
We're releasing you without charges, Detective Scott.
That's a relief. I can tell my inspector I was called away suddenly. If we can keep this between us.
I see no reason for your name to be included in the case file. Do you, sir?
No. But keeping you out of the public record is one thing. Lying to your inspector is another thing entirely.
He doesn't need to know.
What you're doing is illegal.
How does this affect his work?
It compromises him, opens him up to blackmail.
I'm a good detective. I've been with the constabulary 10 years.
I can't keep this from your inspector. I'm sorry.
Sir. You could have looked the other way, sir. It's not as though we haven't done so in the past.
If he were to be found out, all three of us could lose our jobs. I didn't say it was right, but it is what it is.
Julia, how was your surgery on Mrs. Acton? I trust my notes were helpful.
They were. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good.
I think it best, though, that you address me as Dr. Ogden.
I'm sorry?
At work, in our professional relationship.
Seems I'm to apologize again.
I didn't mean it that way.
Julia! Doctor, ready for our evening?
I'm pleased your surgery went so well, Dr. Ogden. My patients await, Detective.
Shall we?
Detective Watts.
Mr. Walker, I wanted to thank you for your help with the case. It was instrumental in catching Mr. Paxton's killer.
I'm glad. Did you need something else from me?
Do you mind if I call you Jack?